Welcome to JSOU's Meet the Faculty. Today, I am joined by Mr. Jim Powers and Mr. Bill Mendel. And with these gentlemen here today, we are going to discuss what they do at JSOU. So, gentlemen, please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you do at JSOU.
You want me to go first?
Yes, the elder first, of course.
Okay. Well, it's my pleasure to go first. Well, I'm a retired infantry colonel. My background is do all the normal infantry assignments. My combat experience was a platoon leader in Vietnam and later a company commander in Vietnam. My favorite assignment in the Army was commanding the what we call now the 6th Ranger Training Battalion down at Hurlburt Field in Florida. I also had a great assignment in Europe. I was chief of war plans and an Army strategist. And based on that, I ended up teaching at the Army War College. I taught strategy and campaign planning. After that, I retired after 6 years teaching at the War College and went to work for the intelligence community doing open source analysis with a focus on Latin America at that time. And then in 2005, I began to work at JSOU, where my initial mission was to stand up the JSOU Press and what we called then the Strategic Studies Department. It was a lot of fun. We had about 12 senior analysts. We called them senior fellows at that time. They were appointed by General Risher as senior fellows. And they were not at JSOU. They were all over the country. They were experts in particular areas, like one was a nuclear physicist and an anthropologist. One distinguished person was an expert in, what was your expertise there?
Knowing you.
Yes, I don't think you had any. Well, he was he'll tell you about an expert in Homeland Security. But we had these senior fellows, and they would all publish papers for us. We would publish the papers. It went pretty well for about 3 years until we ran out of funding. JSOU operated on UFRs, they call them, unfunded requirements in those days. And funds were really short when we stood up JSOU. But relying on the base of senior fellows, one of them, a guy named Scotty Moore, had the task of starting the fellowship program, which was funded by Congress, a line in Congress. Provided specific funds for a counterterrorism fellowship program. And JSOU was going to provide some of the courses. And so Scotty had a huge conference, invited the senior fellows and other experts from around the world to decide what should be taught in this course. The first course was taught in 2006. In fact, today, we just graduated a student who had attended that first course in 2006, and he came back for the advanced course, which we are just finishing today. I think that's about all I'll bring you up to speed on. Ever since 2006, the course has developed. Colonel Hugh Sutherland is running it now and takes it overseas as well as does it here at JSOU.
Thank you, Bill. And Jim?
My name is Jim Powers. I'm a senior fellow here with Bill. I was commissioned as an infantry officer in 1971. In 1974, I went to Special Forces and stayed there until we became a branch in 1987. So I finished my career as a Special Forces officer. My last assignment was the Director of Special Operations Studies at the U.S. Army War College, where Bill also taught. Had the normal range of Special Forces assignments like anybody else. After retirement, I contracted at the U.S. Army War College for 2 or 3 years, and then I was called in 2005 by the governor of Pennsylvania to work in Homeland Security. He wanted an ex-military guy that knew something about legislation, funding, and identifying and protecting critical infrastructure. And all these things made sense. My master's degree was in public administration, so understanding federal and state legislation was pretty easy at that point. I came on when as Bill mentioned, as a senior fellow in 2006 or so, when we formed the Senior Studies Detachment, a department, and had been working here teaching, developing courses, developing curriculum, and traveling overseas running courses for JSOU ever
Perfect.
since.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Jim. So, what was the purpose and focus of the Senior Studies Department?
Well, we had a demand from the units in the field for doing some research to support things they were interested in, and they would provide us topics to research, and we get our senior fellows to do the research. And then, of course, we had a little shop where we published these products and sent them back out to the units in the field. It was a very productive, and it was a lot of fun to do that.
Yeah. And so, how did this transfer into the genesis of the International Education Program?
Well, what happened is all of these experts that we call the senior fellows contributed initially to developing the course. And based on their input, and they taught in the course initially. I think your first teaching was in 2006, if I'm not.
It was our
Yeah.
first course, yeah.
We stood up the first course. And then actually the Congress liked the program. They continued to fund it. And we just continue to do it every year since. It's evolved. And we're doing a whole lot more overseas products now to different countries, virtually almost any country in the world except our adversaries. And it's been very, very productive.
So, since then, JSOU has a big international program within itself, but what courses do you gentlemen help facilitate here at JSOU?
Bill and I both teach in the Special Operations Combating Terrorism course, the Countering Violent Extremism course, the Interministerial Collaboration and Coordination course, and depending upon what the embassies and the Theater Special Operations Commands want, we can tailor a whole bunch of other subjects to enable a course for whatever audience they put together.
And we just finished the advanced course.
Oh, and we have the Advanced Special Operations Combating Terrorism course. These are for graduates of the previous courses.
So, as you facilitated these courses over the years, what is your favorite part that you like to instruct, or is there a certain class or type of instruction period that is your favorite to teach for these students?
Well, my favorite part of the course is I get to run the exercises for the course. Typically in the second week of the course, we have them write a strategy to counter violent extremism or a terrorist group that's troubling a given country. And they work for several days, usually 3 or 4 days, in work groups trying to develop a strategy. In fact, for the advanced course that we just finished, I asked them to do a campaign plan to counter a insurgent group in a country. And they work together and they do that. And then they present their product to a general officer that we invite in to come and receive the briefings. And the general takes their briefings and gives them a critique and advice on what they could do better and so on and so forth. It's an awful lot of fun. I really enjoy it, and we get a lot out of it because we learn from the students. They are the experts. We're just sort of the facilitators for them.
Jim, do you have a favorite part?
I do, and Bill just touched on it. I think the most important thing for me and why I continue to do this job as a contractor is the engagement with the students, because I can do research all day long in English about all these countries and try to find out what's important in their country and what their military is going through and what their people are experiencing. But nothing is better than this firsthand experience, as Bill mentioned, talking to them, getting the real data from them because they've just come from their country, They're all special operators and intel people and law enforcement, so they know exactly what's happening on the ground. And hearing that firsthand knowledge and being able to facilitate, and this is the point I was going to make, it the most important and fun thing for us is to facilitate the discussions. This is adult education. This is not lecture. This is not, I'm going to tell you 14 things and you come back and I'm going to test you on 14 things. We throw out a range of subjects, and the whole idea is to engage them in discussion across the table. Throw the question out there, back off, and let them discuss the responses, because it's all about sharing. This fellowship of the Regional Defense Fellowship Program is so they can share their experiences regarding all these topics with each other. And they realize that's an interesting concept that your nation does. Maybe that would work in my country, or maybe that would not work in my country, but maybe something I do will work in your country. And it's all about sharing. And to watch the lights go on in their brains when we discuss these topics, that's the most fun thing for me.
Amazing. Yes. So, as students that come to these courses that you teach every year, what do you hope that they get from the classes? Like, what do you want them to take away and bring to their respective countries?
Well, in my case, especially for the exercises, we teach them how to write a strategy, for example, or how to write a campaign plan. And this process that they learn, they take back to their home country, and it's a skill that they can use on the job. And in fact, we get feedback. We know that they make use of that. One of the dimensions of the program, of course, is we talk about fellowship, is that we have an effort we call the alumni group. And we try to encourage them to not only communicate with us, but among themselves. And as they are working on the job in their home country and want to get some insight and advice from one of their buddies from the course, they make contact with them. Of course, modern internet and Zoom and all this kind of stuff makes this readily available. And we learn from feedback that they take advantage of this.
That's good. That's a good connection to build with the students that participate in the class together. What about Jim? Do you have something?
I think it's perspectives for me. Bill does a terrific job guiding them through the U.S. Army War College model for developing strategic assessment and developing a campaign plan and a national strategy. All of our instruction is geared for the national strategic level. We're not oriented on the tactical level, rarely on the operational level. We're trying to get the students to make that leap to the next perspective of, what if I were a deputy minister or a principal minister, a deputy assistant minister, to think at the strategic level. And for me, I hope they take away perspectives of hearing how other nations' cultures flavor what they do, how they impact how other nations think. And that to me is just, if they come away with perspectives, because we don't teach any doctrine at all. That's not our job. Just come away with perspectives about how other people feel about these topics.
Well, and some of our students, they're typically field grade officers. The course this week, we've had 3 general officers in the course, and then lieutenant colonels and colonels, but one sergeant in the course, and a policeman. But they all seem to get a lot out of working together, learning the skills, and then communicating with each other. I think that's the big thing, is if we can get them working together. They really achieve what we call the highest level of adult learning. They analyze a difficult situation. They synthesize not only the information they've got, but ideas from their own careers. Remember, these guys are in the cauldron. They're combat people. They're in combat now in their countries. So they synthesize that, bring it all together, and then they create a strategy or a campaign plan. And this is the highest level of adult learning, is to be able to analyze and synthesize and create things. And they do a very good job of it. It's surprising. The thing is, most of these field grade officers, they will go back to their country, and they will be on senior staff positions where they're going to have to do these kinds of things. And we get good feedback from them that it's very helpful.
That's good.
That's a great point that Bill makes about the people that we deal with. Each of the countries represented in our courses sends people that they select for a given reason. These are not people that just happen to be available for the course. They have been identified as people who are going to accept more responsibility, and the government is willing to give them more responsibility and rank. Many of our students, in fact, Bill mentioned today one of our students who came here, I think originally as a major. He left today as a major general. This is not uncommon for us to get students back, or when we go to their country, to see that they've made general or colonel. And they go on to other positions in government. They retire from the military, and because of their expertise, things that they've learned, they become government workers and planners and so forth. So we can see the fruits of our labor very easily.
All right, so to wrap this up, gentlemen, the last question we have is, so why do we think education is important for the SOF operators right now, the practitioners, these general officers, and everyone that attends these courses? Why is this important to them and the future of SOF?
Well, the first point I would make is that in adult education, basically we learn from each other. Yes, there are certain things you got to memorize and know, and procedures, of course, but generally speaking, you learn from each other. And that's what our students do. And as Jim's already referred to, in these courses, we always are learning from the students because they are current. They know what's going on, and there's always something new to learn.
Indeed. General Schoonmaker said something that still rings very true in our joint SOF education, and that is, we can train for certainty. We can train you to shoot a weapon and jump out of airplanes and scuba dive and blow things up, and we can teach you other hard skills, but you need to educate for uncertainty. Training is for certainty. Education is for uncertainty. And that's the whole genesis for this.
Perfect. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for being here today, and I appreciate all your time and effort you've dedicated to JSOU.
It's a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Yeah.